Hey everyone, welcome to the Passion Project. Our first guest is a very good friend of mine. I met her freshman year of college and she's been stuck with me ever since. She's a current undergraduate student at the University of Connecticut studying mechanical engineering, and she's here with us today to discuss her passion for engineering. Please welcome Brandi Manna. Woo!
Thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
So, first, we're going to just jump right into it. So, obviously, your passion is engineering. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I'm going to be honest. When I first started engineering, I didn't really know what it was, and I'm still a little confused, but starting to get the hang of it. It's kind of a roll with the punches type of thing. But basically, I am still trying to figure out exactly where I want to go with it, but I have it narrowed down to my two choices. I've been taking classes in entertainment engineering, and this past summer I did an internship with civil engineering company, even though I'm a mechanical engineer. But basically, mechanical engineering is you're just kind of working with machinery and just trying to figure out how to advance in society.
Wait, so explain the civil engineering internship, because I remember seeing some updates and it looked a little crazy.
It was definitely a little scary, and going into any engineering, I'm not that intimidated, and I don't think other people should be intimidated by it, but it is a male-dominated field. So especially this past summer at my internship, there was only one other woman engineer who was there, so that was kind of crazy to experience, but she was my mentor, and she really helped me along the way. And I know that you and everyone else that I sent some funny pictures to, I was wearing a construction hat and a bright yellow vest. Yeah, so that was with civil engineering. That is more doing road work and bridges and buildings and things like that. And it also has to do a little bit with environmental engineering and kind of testing out the chemicals in the water and making sure that when we're building something, runoff doesn't go into the water and pollute it. But a lot of what I was doing when I was out on job sites is road work, and that was, as the engineers, we would work in AutoCAD, which is a very high-tech program that I got to work with, which was very scary starting off. But as I mentioned, I had a great mentor, Maddie, who showed me the ropes of everything. And with that, we would design the whole entire roadway for whatever grant we got and the streets that needed to be fixed. So if there are roads that have a lot of potholes, or if there's flooding on that road, that was one of the projects that we did, is we had to totally reinvent and lift up a road by 18 inches, multiple roads, because it was flooding. And it was right by the water. So it was crazy to work with. And with that, it was a very ritzy area. So you kind of have to make sure you're talking to everyone who lives there, and if they complain, you got to deal with that and figure everything out, which was something that I also got to experience for the first time.
Yeah.
It was definitely something that will help me in the future, I will say, trying to deal with all of that, making sure everyone is happy, and also doing the best work that we can. And with that, we basically have to dig up, and all the big machinery that you usually see on the side of highways and everything, that's like the company that we were dealing with. And they dug up the whole entire road and all the curb and everything, whatever was in the plans that we made. So it's very rewarding, I would say, the work that I did this past summer, because I got to start a project from scratch. I basically would look up on Google Maps. My boss would tell me the roads that I had to look on, and I would either drive to those roads or walk them on Google Maps and see what I was dealing with, basically, and see where we needed some more work on the roads. If, again, I was saying there were potholes, or alligator cracking is the technical term that we would
Wait,
use.
that's the technical
Yes,
term.
it is, which doesn't sound real, but it is. And I drew up, that's kind of what my purpose was this summer, is drawing up the plans. And then once those plans were drawn out, and these projects take, some of them, one of the projects I was working on has been in the go around for 2 years already, and some of them, they started the same time I started my internship, and I got to see them all the way through, and it only took a couple months to do. Yeah. So like I said, it was very rewarding because I got to see some of my jobs from start to finish, and my names were on the job plans, which is the first time that that's ever happened. I'm not even a graduate student yet. I don't even have my degree, and I was able to put my name on these site plans for the whole town, the mayor to see, and everything like that. I got to meet because the internship was in my town, in my hometown. It was 5 minutes from my house, and we are working with surrounding towns as well, and I got to meet the mayors of multiple different towns, which was very exciting for me, and it was just a great community where I was working too. Everyone was very friendly and supportive.
Yeah, wow. That's crazy. I didn't even know all about the little details, but
yes.
that's civil engineering.
Mm-hmm.
But you're studying mechanical engineering.
I am studying mechanical engineering, and I don't want to disappoint you, but I feel like I could talk more about civil than mechanical just because I had my internship. So now that I know the inner workings of everything, I can go on and talk about that. I was there for 3 or 4 months, but with mechanical, originally what I'm planning on doing with mechanical is I want to get into aerospace, which... Yes.
Oh my God.
In my degree, as a junior, you originally, your first 2 years, freshman and sophomore year in college, you get an advisor who is just an advisor, knows nothing about engineering, but they went to school to be an advisor or a counselor of some sort, and that's who I had. And
they're not in the school of engineering?
She has no knowledge of engineering whatsoever.
What?
So she just kind of helps me pick my classes, and if I need to rant to her, I loved my advisor. Shout out to Ashley Rose. She was amazing. But I'm sad now because I just got a new advisor who is actually a professor in the School of Engineering because he's going to help me. I have to pick a concentration this year. So my concentration is going to be aerospace engineering. And that will, thank you.
That's crazy.
Yes, it is very intense. We'll see. We're rolling with the punches.
What are the options of concentrations? Like if aerospace...
You can do aerospace. I know something that I'm interested in, which one of my professors who last semester, I didn't love him, but I did love him because he was kind of a tough love professor, and it was one of the hardest classes that I'm going to take. And I went to his office hours, and when he would actually explain things to me, it would really help. But his class was so hard, but it did get me interested in doing, which I didn't even know mechanical did this, is working with your AC unit in your house and your heating and your air conditioning in your house. And that could kind of be a concentration. You know how people in high school do VOTEC? Or they do a concentrated school for a trade school.
Oh, a trade school.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
Yes. That's one of the things that you can do with mechanical engineering is one of the things that you can concentrate in is a trade like that. And that would be the heating and air conditioning in your house. And that was one of the first things that I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm finally learning what mechanical engineering is. And this is kind of cool because now I could go on and tell you how you use the evaporator and the condenser and everything, all of that you wouldn't think about, that all the underground and everything in your house and how you get heat and air into your house. That's what I learned about. One of the things I learned about last semester. And that was really cool to think about.
That's helpful.
Yes. One of the things that I'm looking to go into with aerospace is one of my friends back home. She's also a mechanical engineer at TCNJ. And she...
What is that?
What?
TC...
The College of New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But not everyone's from New Jersey.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Even though New Jersey people like to think so.
The New Jerseyans. I know. I think that everyone knows what I'm talking about, but they don't. My bad. I'll explain more. But she had an internship with the government, and a lot of that is working with weaponry and missiles.
Oh, my God.
Which is very cool to think about, working for the government and dealing with all of that. And a lot of mechanical, too, also has to do... There's a lot of equilibrium equations, which... Should I explain?
No.
Okay. Sorry.
It's about your passion, not about
the
equation.
working with equilibrium equations have to do with a lot of fluids, and making sure that everything is draining correctly is something that you can concentrate in, basically. And we're working a lot with pistons and cylinders and gas and air and how that works, those functions.
And you chose aerospace. Is there a reason?
Yes. So
because I still want to know, and everyone wants to know, about why you chose mechanical engineering. We have to get
into that.
Yeah.
We haven't even started that.
So tell me about aerospace, and then I want to hear the backstory.
Okay. So aerospace engineering, I'm basically going to be working, to put it in short, with rocket ships. And
that's so cool.
Yes. Have you
watched the movie Hidden Figures?
Yes. I know that is one of your top movies. Yes, that is a very good movie. I also love The Martian with Matt Damon.
Oh, when he eats potatoes.
Yes, and he makes it all on Mars and everything.
Yeah,
very cool.
That's crazy.
But basically, with aerospace, I will be helping make advanced technology and make advancements in how we travel to outer space and how we send other machinery and systems to try and find other life forms. You know how we know there's rovers on Mars and everywhere else. That's in satellites up in space. That's basically, I will be creating those machines and figuring out how to advance them and make them better and maybe more cost efficient or material efficient, basically.
So would you have to, I don't really know if I'm sure there are, but like, would you work for NASA?
Yes.
And that's what you want to do?
Yes. There is NASA, everyone knows, in Florida, but there is also Texas. There's also in DC.
Oh.
Around that area. So that's, I think, where I'm going to try to end up. But there are also naval bases. If I'm not necessarily working for NASA, there are other naval bases and government-ran institutions that are underneath NASA that still cooperate with them.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So
it's all intertwined.
Yes.
Kind of.
That's the end game.
My wait, what's his relation to me? He's like my mom's cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know what that is to me. But
cousin.
Yeah, my great cousin. He's an aerospace engineer at NASA in Colorado.
Hook me up.
I will.
Send him my resume.
I'll after this. I'll let you know. Okay, so obviously this is called the Passion Project.
Yes.
And clearly you're passionate about it. But I remember, for those that don't know that are listening, the reason Brandi is my first guest is actually because she kind of gave me this idea unknowingly, like freshman year, when I would ask people, like, you know, what they're majoring in and why. And a lot of people were just like, oh, psych, or like, I don't know, whatever, engineering.
Calm.
Yeah, but I didn't really talk to calm. I'm calm, just so you're aware. But yeah. But never mind that. I actually didn't really talk to people that were calm.
You didn't.
Weird.
Business.
Yeah, but the point is that everybody had, their reasoning just was like to make money.
Basic.
Or like, yeah, it was like stupid reasonings. And when I talked to Brandi, when we first kind of met, I kind of remember where it was too, on campus, but we don't have to get into it. I don't know why. But you had this like story for why you chose to major in engineering and go into that. And that's when I was like, oh, wow. Like, people actually have interesting reasons or stories, or like inspiring kind of stories as to why they're majoring in what they are, or like they want to pursue this career. And that's how I got the idea for maybe one day having a podcast. I don't even think I thought that much ahead.
How far we've come.
Yeah, literally like 2 years later, which is crazy that it's already been 2 years. But yeah, so pretty much you have good stories. So tell everyone listening why you chose
the viewers are waiting.
Engineering and that whole story.
What a story.
We're really hyping it up.
We are hyping it. It's not that big of a story. Basically,
but it's touching.
It is. I'm a very family-oriented person, which
Yes.
many people who know me within the first 10 minutes of knowing me, I feel like you can figure that out. And basically,
She has a great family, by the way. I met them.
Very loving family. And I have 3 brothers, dad, mom, stepmom, cousins. All my cousins are boys. I'm basically the only girl other than my aunts and grandparents and everything. And basically, growing up, I loved my dad, but I was always super busy with sports and everything. And I would always take the weekends as, all right, this is when I'm going to relax if it's an off season for a sport and I'll get to sleep in. If I didn't have a game that weekend, this will be great. And I would hate my father, especially in middle school when you're waking up at 6 a.m. to try and get ready. On the weekends, I was like, all right, yes, Saturday morning, I'm sleeping in. I know what I'm doing. Wrong. Father comes into my room screaming, Brandi, we're going to do some yard work. Get out in the back. And I was like, oh my gosh, this man, no. And I would never get out of bed. And then he would get mad at me. And he's 30 minutes later, come back in. I told you to get out here 30 minutes ago. What are you doing? Whatever. So that's how I spent my weekends with my father, is doing yard work. And my dad he's a project manager for a company in New York, based in New York. He works in New Jersey. And he does a lot of construction. He's not the general contractor who is the person that installs everything, but he's in charge of everything. He sees site plans, it was so funny. During my internship this summer, I would be sending him pictures of what I was doing. And I was like, isn't this so cool? These are site plans. And he was like, I see this every day. It's not that cool, but yeah. So
that's cute though.
He got me really excited. With his job, once he started teaching me about what he did, I started thinking to myself, wow, this is actually really interesting and really cool, looking at these site plans and looking at the blueprints for buildings. And he works a lot with schools. And that's a lot with what you can do with civil engineering too. And I just thought that this was so interesting that he would always have us, when we were old enough, he would have us, like, we built the shed in our backyard, and we built the deck, and we built the porch in our house. My dad is a very handy man. So my older brother, Marco, and I would always on the weekends be building with him, and we would learn what a level is, how to use an electric drill, and all of the inner workings of how to make all of that. And I thought that it was very great how my dad was able to, didn't have to hire anyone. It was just him and my grandfather, because they have the same job, and they would just build whatever we wanted to build. And as I was getting older, getting into high school too, my dad was he was supportive, but he very much wanted me to have a plan and my brother to have a plan, and wanted things to get figured out for us because he wants us to have a good life, you know?
Very much a planner.
Yes, very much a planner. And he was like, all right, what do you like? And I was like, honestly, as much as I hated when you would wake me up, I loved building. I love building things. I was such a Lego nerd. I loved doing all of that. I loved puzzles and things like that, just figuring things out, you know? Yeah. And that is when I want to do something that I'm going to love. And looking back at it, also growing up in a more male-dominated family, I was comfortable in that sort of environment as well. And I grew up a tomboy too, so that whole kind of springed into it. And as a kid growing up too, I also would ask for books on gravity and Newton's laws in middle school, which is so weird as a middle schooler to do. Funny. And I would just be reading these dumb it down elementary, like middle school level books so you can teach kids, because my brain wasn't developed and knew what was going on yet. But I was so interested in it. And I remember in elementary school, I got this huge space book, and I always we had a planetarium by our house as well. So I would always love going to the planetarium, and I was always so interested in stars and outer space, basically. Yeah. And those were the books that I was getting. I was getting books on gravity, and I would always be asking my dad, because he majored in something in business. However, he was always interested in science. So he's very much a science guy and history guy. And so he would just tell me about all of the history of stars and why things worked the way that they did. And so that helped push me into what I want my future career to be. And also, I don't want to forget, yes, my dad did push me a lot. And I remember one of the summer jobs that I was working, I worked at a deli. It was my first job, freshman year of high school. And it was my friend's deli. And when it wasn't busy, I would just start building little gadgets I built a little shooter, kind of like archery bow out of a pen and some sticky notes and a few pens and rubber bands.
Oh my God.
And one of my coworkers was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm building, I don't know, I'm building something to like shoot rubber bands with. I don't know.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Why?" And I was like, "I just love to build things, and I think it's really cool to figure out how things work." And she asked, she was like, "Is that what you want to go into?" And I was a freshman in high school at this point. And I go, "Honestly, yeah, I think so. Like with how my family is and how I grew up and the environment that I grew up in, I was like, it makes sense. And this is something that I love to do." And I have, at the time, they weren't great, but looking back at it, I'm so grateful that my dad did wake us up that early to help him build the shed, to build our deck in the back of our house. And I can't give him all the credit because my mom was also big supporter. And while my dad did help spark the interest, my mom also was very much like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" Very much nicer than forcing me to figure everything out. But what do you like? You know, like, I know that you like building and everything like that, but what do you want to do? And I said, honestly, I don't know what I would love because I was always super busy growing up, and I don't relax. My mom, it's a trademark in my family. They call me the busy bee because of my name, because I never sit down. I hate just sitting down and not doing anything. And she said, "Well, what about engineering? How cool would it be that you would be an engineer?" And I would be the first. My mom loves to bring this up. She's like, "You need to graduate with an engineering degree," because her younger brother and her cousin, my great cousin, they all started off in engineering, and they were both men, and it was too hard for them. So they went into a different major. And she goes, "You have to prove them wrong. You have to show that someone in our family can do it." And that she said, "You're going to be that person." She's like, "I know you're going to be that person to do it." So that definitely helped motivate me. I'm a very competitive person. Yeah. So I said, all right, I got to show my uncle up and my cousin. Like, how awesome would that be?
It was too hard for them.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're like,
and
amazing. I don't want to say like,
I'm
pretty sure you have like all A's or something.
I mean, yeah, I like to do well in school.
Yeah, I didn't want
I think it's important.
Assume, but like I was fairly certain, and I was like, wait, should I not say that? But yeah.
Yeah.
Great GPA. Love what
hard
you
worker.
do. Very hardworking.
And
yeah.
My mom is a lot of people in my family are teachers. And she said, "You're going to hate teaching, number one. Don't be a teacher. You're not going to make any money." And she would always say, "You're too smart to let an opportunity pass you by and not do something to reward yourself for how hard you always have worked in school and everything like that." So while my dad helped start the passion, I guess you would say, my mom was the one who suggested I go into engineering.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any kinds of engineering. There's biomedical, civil, mechanical, a bunch of electrical. And I just heard, I was like, I think mechanical is a type of engineering. I was like, let me do that. And nothing really sparked. But when I looked up the basic definition online, mechanical is
it's
figuring out how systems work, basically.
Yeah, like the basics.
Yes. And I'm the type of person in school, too. If a teacher just tells me, okay, do this, it won't click in my head. I need to know why something works, or else I'm not going to understand it at all. And that's kind of how I live my life, too, is that I'm a very logical thinker. I need to know why something works. I'm a very logical thinker.
That's what sometimes people butt heads.
Yes. And yes, I'm not an emotional thinker at all. I'm like, this is the logical thing to do because how my mind works is I'm just a very systematic person.
Yeah.
So it makes sense how getting into it and everything. But yes, I do have my parents to thank for helping start this and why I grew up and all of my opportunities.
Yeah. I remember freshman year because this I also always think about, which you're probably like, why do you I remember such random things, but I remember like in the spring, and there's an assignment because somebody else like also had to do it, where you have to build a catapult.
Yes,
Is that what
that's your freshman year project.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you had to build this catapult, and I remember hearing like from other people's experiences, they were just like miserable. They're like, I don't want to build this stupid thing. Like some people are just students. And
yes, because in engineering, you can't be an engineer if you don't love it, because it is so much work, and it's not the kind of job where it's usually a 9 to 5, but you're probably going to be there from 9 to 10 p.m. most nights. You're not just going to pack up at 5 and leave. If you have something, you have a deadline, you need to figure something out, it's going to take you a long time. And a lot of people in engineering think that they are very smart. And I'm sure that they are very smart. Don't get me wrong. You have to be smart. You have to be hardworking.
Yes.
However, it gets in the way a lot. And to a lot of people, you're freshmen. And I feel like with the catapult project, you're split up into either you've never used any tool other than a handheld screwdriver in your life, or you were building robots in your room in high school. I feel like that's how you split up engineers. And thankfully, because of my dad's job, I know machinery, and I know how to use them and how things like that work. And the catapult is, yes, it is a very simple starting project, but it's not if you don't know what you're doing. And I agree, a lot of people were nervous about it because they either didn't know what they were doing, or they thought that it was stupid because they thought it was the easiest thing in the world. But I was so excited, and I am so sad because I let one of my other teammates take home the catapult, but I took a million pictures and was sending them to my family, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I was like, look what I just made. How awesome is this? And you got to test out to see how far it went, and you had 3 distances that you had to hit, and your grade was based off of changing your catapult lever, basically, and being able to hit those 3 distances and finding the accuracy of it. And I was so nervous that day because I was like, all right, this is the first thing that I've built that I'm getting graded on and tested on. And you don't realize, and that's I have another story after this to get into why I'm passionate about engineering, but you don't realize how much, not the catapult, but later on, what you do with engineering, you have people's lives on the line, basically. You need to know what you're doing, and your team needs to know what you're doing, or else people could die.
And that was one of your classes, right?
Yes. So
oh wait, I just wanted to say,
go ahead,
because the whole reason I brought this up, which you can obviously tell based on how you talk about it, but the reason I brought it up was because I remember hanging out with you, and you're like, I have to go build something for the catapult project, whatever. And, like, you were so, I think I asked something like, oh, like, you like doing it or something like that, because people were always, like, complaining. And you were just, like, so excited to, like, go to that room where like, work room or something.
Engineering 2.
Yeah, like, you were just so excited. And, yeah, it's just refreshing to, like, when someone actually likes what they're studying and stuff.
Yeah. No, it's definitely cool to see how you're literally, like, even the mics that we're using, I know that viewers can't see, but even the mics,
listeners.
Everything, the listeners, everything that you use, and it's funny because
sound engineering.
Yes, our good friend Jayla, actually last year we were walking around campus and she asked me a question, and she asked me this jokingly, but I responded very seriously, and she said, so I'm just curious, when you walk around at buildings and you're looking at buildings, are you thinking to yourself, I wonder how that was made? She asked it jokingly, like, haha, you know? But I was like, honestly, yes, everything that you use, you don't think about it. But with engineering, it flips a switch. And now when you look at Gamble, our basketball arena, even that, a dome is one of the most secure shapes that you could build.
Really?
It is the most secure type of building that you can build, and it's because everything kind of all goes to one point, and you're centered around that one point, and you don't have to worry about any other structural important pivots, basically.
Yeah.
Because everything is helping to support the one center point. And because you have every rod, I guess you could say, is building up to that center point, there's so much supporting beams and everything in that just makes it the strongest structural shape that you can build.
Why are those not built as like frequently then?
Convenience, because when you think about a building, what fits more rooms? A dome or a big rectangular building where you can have multiple floors and the size of the ceiling, the height of the ceiling will all be the same. You can't do that in a dome because it starts to concave in and become round towards your ceiling, and then it makes it smaller. So it's just room, basically.
That makes sense.
But
well, that's cool.
Yeah. No, and it was funny that she asked me that because I told her, I was like, honestly, everything around you is engineering.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy to think about.
You mentioned before about when you're doing the catapult and the people in their classes and they're all smart, but like, you know, whatever. Was there ever like times or instances where, because it's also like predominantly a lot of boys or men. Yes. So even just in your classes, like in college, are there instances where you have to like do a group project and you can tell they're not like taking you seriously?
Almost every class that I've taken, especially mechanical, in my experience, most of my friends are civil and electrical engineers or chemical, biomedical. I mean, I have friends everywhere, but
so cool.
Yeah, no, not really. I don't actually have that many friends, but I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right, let's just move on. A lot of times, mechanical is the most male-dominant field. Civil engineering, there are a lot more women in your classes.
That's so interesting.
Biomedical and maybe not so much chemical, I feel like, but chemical has a decent amount of women and everything. But yes, because mechanical is a lot more hands-on and like men, macho. You know? Yes, macho men. And
even though they're all like nerds.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, and I mean we're all nerdy. You need to be nerdy to be, you know. But yes, there are, if we're going stereotypes, very nerdy men a lot of the times, and they will see that you're a woman. I just had recently, actually, I get very nervous about the first day of school because I never know if I'm going to have anyone that I know in my classes. And I'm like, what am I going to do if I don't know someone? And I had a lab, and it didn't start until the third week of school. Mm-hmm. And you had to pick your lab partner when you got in, and you're stuck with them for the rest of the semester. Good luck. Hope you have a good lab partner. So I'm freaking out because I didn't know any of my friends who were in my lab section, and there were maybe 15 people in my lab, so not a very big class at all. So I show up early to class for that day, the first lab, because I'm nervous, and I sit down, and there was two other men who sat down, and we all sat at different lab tables, and I see people just coming in, and from my understanding, it seemed like nobody knew anyone in the class. Everyone was just randomly picking someone. Hey, can I sit here? And twice, because how the lab tables are set up, there's only 2 seats at a table, but there's a bunch of monitors on the front end of the table kind of blocking who is sitting there, so you won't know until you look past who is sitting there. And twice I had 2 people walk by my table, turn to sit into my seat. They saw that it was me, and they turned around, like literally did a 180 to turn around and left. And not to assume or anything, but I'm pretty sure it's because I was a woman they turned around. Which I was thinking, I started sweating. Because the class started at 12:20. It was 12:19, and I still didn't have a partner. And it didn't seem like anyone else was showing up, and I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I'm not going to have a partner. And it seems like, in my opinion, one of the main reasons I didn't have a partner is because I'm the only woman in the class, by the way. Let me just preface that. Yes. And I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I think it's because I'm a woman. Which, all right, if I'm a man, I'm probably going to choose to sit next to another male. If I'm a woman walking into a class, I'm probably going to choose next to another woman. I feel like you're just most of the time more comfortable with someone who's the same like sex as you, you know?
Yeah.
So I get it, but it was kind of disheartening because I was freaking out and I was like, guys, you need to understand that if it's a comfortness thing, all right, I get it. But I'm just as smarter, maybe, you know, as everyone else in the class. So it's not that big of a deal if you're working with a woman. But eventually someone moved their seat because they also didn't have a partner. And his words to me were, all right, looks like no one else is showing up. Do you want to just work together? I go, yeah, that would be great. And I'm breaking the ice a little bit, but I could just tell that he does not want to sit next to me. And that same first class, I had the TA, he came over and asked us, we had to hand in a paper at the beginning of class to sign about safety or something. And he came over and said, can you write your table number on your papers? My lab partner goes, those aren't ours. And he wasn't understanding. He was like, no. And he continued to ask 3 other times, arguing with my lab partner, these are your papers, put your number on them. He's like, we already handed in our papers with our table number on them. Like, those aren't our papers. We already handed ours in. And he's like, oh, okay, sorry. Finally leaves. I said to my partner, I go, oh, that was weird that he asked that. And he goes, yeah, it's because the name on the paper was a girl's name or something like that. Like, it was another male in the class because I was the only girl, but I guess it was a gender neutral name like Dylan or Sam or something like that. And because I was a woman, he thought that it was our papers. And not that that was sexist or anything, but I was kind of like, my partner literally had to tell you 3 times that those weren't our papers because you thought it was a woman's name and you weren't understanding. It was
he thought that you messed up.
Yeah, and he thought that I messed up, and it was just kind of annoying. And I've have other stories where that's happened where, like, in a lab last year, I had 2 male partners, and they always want you to write because a girl's writing is usually nicer. And I have awful handwriting. My mom always says that I write like a man, and I have awful handwriting. And I tell them I won't write anything. If they say that to me, I'll say I don't have good handwriting. I'm not writing. You know, because that's your excuse. You think I have better handwriting than you because I'm a woman. That's why you want me to write. They probably just don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
And multiple times with my 2 lab partners, this was really sad because this was kind of the first time that I experienced it in full to the extreme. We were answering a lab question and I said, oh, I think this is how you do it. And multiple times they would say, well, let's just ask the TA. And then they would ask the TA about my answer and it would turn out to be right. And in my head, I was just like, I bet you if that was the other guy saying that answer, you would just think that it was correct. But because I'm a woman and I'm saying that this is the answer, you don't want me to one up you. We're supposed to be working as a team. We're a group. And it's not, I think that a lot of the times their egos get in the way and they don't want it to seem like a woman knows more than them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's a little disheartening, but I mean, comes with the job, basically.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the whole point of, like, STEM being male-dominated. Because in my classes, like, comm classes or Spanish classes, it's just, like, not like that. I mean, it is probably actually more women than men now that I think about it. But, like, I've just never... Maybe in high school, I do remember that kind of happening in, like, science classes. But still, like, in my classes now, like, nobody... If anything, they trust the girl more. Maybe because it's more, like, arts or humanities, like, social science kind of.
Maybe, too. And I think a big part of it is that everyone in... My professors, I've had multiple professors say this, that no one in engineering wants to work with a group because they all think that they're so smart and they can just do it on their own, which probably, but in engineering you have to work with, in the real world, you are going to have a team that you are doing something with and you're going to have a superior.
Girls are better at
or
it's like proven that girls are better at working in a team, I think.
Yeah.
Is there an engineering comm class?
I'm not sure. They should make us take public speaking or something.
Well, because
honestly,
there's group, like my major has group communication classes or small group communication, which I don't want to take because I also don't really want to do the group
they're
work,
probably insufferable. They're probably so awful of a class, but I feel like that's so important and would be great.
Create it for engineering students. Like there's Spanish for business or for engineering. Like they should create a comm class.
They should. I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are people who are used to working by themselves and don't even know how to talk to someone at all. Like not even in a class setting, even outside of a class setting, some people are just don't have that experience and don't like talking to people.
Yeah.
And don't know how to, which is very hard to do in this major and every major, I feel like.
Yeah. Before we wrap up and everything, I did want to ask, because we talked all about like your whole journey and the ups and downs, but is there like a specific accomplishment that you are particularly proud of, at least so far in your life? It's only starting out, but still.
You know, I gotta think about it. Just off the top of my head, this is very minor. I mean, obviously my internship this past summer, I was very happy about getting that. I thought that I was very proud of that.
Yeah.
And being able to do a lot of the things that I did there were on your own, as many internships are. It's kind of, they told me that there's no training for this job. You just got to figure it out. And that was somewhat new to me and a learning curve that I had to figure out. So I was very proud that I survived that. However, getting more specific, I think one of the accomplishments that I'm very proud of is a class that I took freshman year. You had to go to the workshop downtown, and there's a whole, it's the building downtown, the drama building. They have a lab in there, and it's a workshop, and that's where they build everything for the production shows that are this is entertainment engineering. All of the shows on campus that you see, we build all of the props and everything for it. And so I would help with that. And my final for that class was I had to build a toolbox out of wood, which isn't that hard to do, but it's totally on your own. And there was a specific design that we all had to do the same design. And you're working with these tools that you somewhat have to be certified to use. Like we're using a table saw and a bunch of other things that are very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. And our professor was just standing there watching us and basically just monitoring to make sure that we don't cut off a finger. But otherwise, you're doing it on your own. Well, that's what the whole class was leading up to, is that we had used those machines before and everything. However, it wasn't on our own. It was always with our professor or with a friend. And everyone in the class made your own toolbox. And I was talking to my dad and my grandfather, because that's their job, basically has to do with using a lot of those tools. And I told them, I was like, I'm really nervous. And they're like, don't be nervous. You've used these tools even before you got to college, because I would help them out with some of their jobs. And after I did it, it took maybe 3 or 4 classes to actually be able to build it. But at the end, it was so silly because it was this tiny little toolbox. But I was so proud of it because I was like, wow, I did this on my own, and I was really nervous to do it. And it was kind of a big girl thing to do. Yeah. And I was so proud because even though my dad and my grandpa and my mom and everyone else in my family are like, oh, it's a stupid little toolbox, anyone can do that. And they've been using those machines and everything for years. That was the first time I did that on my own. And I was like, wow, like it kind of showed me, and I was able to prove to myself, okay, even though this seemed really hard and I was scared to do it at first, you did it, and weight is off, and there you go. Yeah. So that's something little that I'm proud of.
Oh, yeah, I love that. So lastly, I just wanted to finish with do you have any, stop laughing at me.
Sorry.
But seriously, if anyone that's thinking about going into engineering or a male dominated field, or They don't know. Okay. But like they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want to do or anything. What do you have like any advice other than do it?
My advice is, and it's funny, I started getting into podcasts. I'm usually not a podcast girl. And I started listening to a thermodynamics podcast, which don't ask me why I was listening to it.
You had to
yes.
take thermo.
Yes. And what it said in the podcast is basically, if you're going to do something, start off, like, let's say you're moving to a town, a new town. Start off somewhere that is scary and you don't know anyone and maybe you can't even afford it. Because if you can figure out to do something while you're struggling, then you can figure out how to do anything, basically. If you can survive and do something when you're struggling and you're at your lowest, then you can do it when you're at your best and when you actually know what you're doing. So if you're thinking to going into a field that you're like, maybe I'm not that smart, or maybe I'm not, I don't know. If you're just nervous about anything like that and you don't think that you can do it, you can. You just have to put in the work and don't be afraid to struggle, because you are going to struggle with everything. However, if you really want to do it, you're going to be able to figure it out and you're going to struggle through it. But once you get past that, then for the future, you're going to know what to do, and then it'll all start to click and come together, and you're going to learn to love what you do because you were able to struggle through it. And also, doing something on your own is so rewarding that it's one of the best feelings, honestly. So I would just say, if you're scared or you don't know what to do, you can always start off. You can always switch your major. You can start off, especially in engineering, you can start off as an undecided engineering major, because a lot of your classes the first year are just big lectures that everyone is taking. So if you don't know what kind of engineering you want to go into, you can go in undecided. Or with anything, if you don't know what to do, I like this podcast. What are you passionate about? If anyone asks me if they're undecided or they don't know if they want to switch their major because they don't love what they're doing, I'll tell them, what do you love to do? What's a hobby that you love? What's something niche that you are so passionate about? And that will help you figure out what you want to do in the future, because you're going to be doing something that you love and something that feels rewarding to you. Even though it might not be the most interesting thing in the world to other people, if you're passionate about it and you're interested in it, then you're going to love the life that you build for yourself.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was amazing. I was smiling the whole time. Well, thank you so much for being my first guest.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for everyone that's listening. And I can't wait for the future episodes and maybe to have you back on.
Yes. I mean, if I find another passion, we'll see.
I mean, it sounds like you could talk about engineering another hour.
We could probably have 5 more podcast episodes on me.
Literally. Well,
no, but this was fun. Thanks.
Of course. Thanks for coming, and thanks for listening to The Passion Project.
Bye, guys.